Welcome back to Season 5 of Porcelain Peak, your favorite strange and scary podcast featuring deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual. I'm one of your hosts, Tiggity Tone. I'm joined by
John.
And
the internet darling, the internet daddy. You all know him. You all love him. It's me. It's Anthony. I'm back here again.
Woo! It's your boy.
Yes, this week we're going to share some news during Chop Talk about some new posters and a trailer.
Oh, shit.
And then we're going to play trivia. And for our main discussion, we are getting into our last rights section. And I picked Super 8 and Big Trouble in Little China for my two wish we'd covered them on the show movies.
Big Trouble in Little China.
China. So, if you don't hear from us in 30 minutes, call the president.
Jack Burton, Lopan. There's good people on both sides. How little is this China?
So we're going to hop in the old Pork Chop Express and get started with that Chop Talk.
Should I be concerned about this small China?
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we get disappointed by David Gordon Green again, how are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. Today is the last day of my vacation.
Woo!
And we'll have to go back to work.
Would you say that it was a vacation worth taking though?
100%. I needed the recuperation time. I needed the break. Went to an amazing concert with some people I really enjoy. Woo!
Then tried to go to another amazing concert.
And then that concert got canceled 30 minutes before the doors open. Not woo. But I will get to go to that concert on its rescheduled date, which is fine. But I've been having a really good time.
Good.
Awesome.
Happy to hear it. Yeah, it's been nice to be able to see you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
We all got to hang out and go to a concert, and we all got to hang out and watch The Little Barn, too.
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
Which
Spoilers.
was fucking fantastic. Spoilers for what?
Just that we're going to be talking about that.
Next week.
I already announced it on the Instagram, so it's not really a
Oh,
spoiler.
we are. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's his other movie.
Yeah. Anyway.
We're so ahead.
How are you?
I am doing quite well.
Yes!
Thanks! Yeah! I know, crazy, right? No, I'm feeling really good. I had a bomb dropped on my brain because I went to see Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And I have not yet seen Barbie, so I have not completed the Barbenheimer
I have completed
challenge.
the Barbenheimer. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you feel like you're a better person for it?
I feel like I'm a different person.
I'm really going like therapist style on this. I'm just like, and how do you feel about that, John? How do you feel about the decisions you made?
I think they're both great.
Standing outside of the screening for Oppenheimer, there was a poster for it, and it's just Cillian Murphy in his get up with his hat and his jacket and everything. But then they also had a standee of Harrison Ford from Indiana Jones right next to it, and I was like, what's going on here? Guys in hats and jackets is the summer theme.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that's kind of driving me a little bit nuts about all of the press around Oppenheimer is that it's they're giving Cillian the same treatment that they have been giving Pedro Pascal for the past year and a half, which is the whole every interviewer has to comment on how beautiful his eyes are and how sexy he is. They're all suddenly realizing that he's a sexy man, and I'm like, come on, baby.
I saw that man's little British ding dong many years ago.
And it's had its own little special part in my brain and in my heart since then. But Oppenheimer's fantastic. You don't need us to tell you that it is a fucking awesome movie. You've probably seen all of the really, really positive reviews for it. So
I really thought it was going to tank. And I think that the viral marketing with the Barbenheimer thing helped it out.
Yeah, Dan Merle did a whole segment on his newest box office video about how this is probably the most successful instance of counter programming to movies. Mm-hmm. The last time that it was remotely this successful, I think, was The Dark Knight and some comedy with Kevin Hart or something. But this is the numbers, especially for Barbie, have just completely blown expectations out of the water. And so Barbie is making tons and tons of money, and
the highest grossing movie directed by a woman.
Oh, that is awesome. I did not see that, but I'm not surprised. I knew that because of the viral marketing and also just because it looked like a really fun movie that it was going to do great. Oppenheimer, yes, I was very surprised. And also, these movies have completely fucked Mission Impossible.
That's what I was saying. I was like,
Yeah.
the only
It's like,
downside
oh,
is that
Oppenheimer-
tank's like 64%.
Oppenheimer drops and it's Mission Impossible that bombs. Yeah, so we had already heard whispers of Mission Impossible not doing too great after we saw it. And that really they messed up by being so stubborn. And this is Tom Cruise because he's the producer and everything, being so stubborn and thinking, because he was going all basically we're segueing into just chop talk at this point because I did want to talk a little bit about the box office on these movies and what's been going on with them. But Cruise was trying to go to each like individual theater company and like agency and saying, keep Mission Impossible on your big screens and in your IMAX screens and push out Oppenheimer and push out Barbie and all that stuff, mostly Oppenheimer for the IMAX screens. And they were like, no, like we're going to show the movies when they come out on the screens that they're supposed to be on, and it fucked over Mission Impossible. And yeah, if they had just moved that to like a Christmas release and
Even
tried
a week
not
before
to
and let
compete,
that thing have 2.
yeah.
It really only had like a week and a half.
Yeah.
Well, and I was doing some research into what the process was for Oppenheimer getting released because it dawned on me that this was Nolan's first movie after switching studios, because up until this point he's been working with Warner Brothers and partnered with Legendary typically and Syncope, his
brand,
company, yeah.
His brand.
And after they decided to screw him over with Tenet when they were during COVID, when they were doing their day and date release stuff, he left Warner Brothers and shopped around and was trying to figure out a different studio. And his stipulations to Universal that they accepted because they were like, yeah, this movie's gonna do really well, was he wanted $100 million for the budget. He wanted another $100 million for the marketing, which I do think did wonders for the success of this movie because those trailers were excellent and also just excellent at making you get that vibe of this is an event and you have to come to an IMAX theater to see it, which is I think what movies need to be doing now, and what Marvel has kind of been fucking up in the past couple of years since Endgame is like you have to make these movies feel like an event that people need to be at.
They have to be a spectacle, otherwise you're just doing the same shit
It's like
over
you've
and
been
over
saying,
again.
like people are not going to the movies, and so you need to give them a reason to go. And so the marketing did really well for this, and then the accidental social media stuff that just happened with this and Barbie, and then on top of that, he said
It's funny because Tom Cruise was partially responsible for that.
yeah, I bet he's kicking himself probably in his own face. I bet he can do that because he's so short. But
I have a sneaking suspicion that I mean, yes, I know that Tom Cruise is a lover of cinema, and I think that's very apparent if you watch his films. I mean, he's a very studious when it comes to how cinema works and how to make an entertaining film. All that's fine and dandy, but I have a sneaking suspicion that there were some ulterior motives there. That like being like, oh, I've got my tickets planned for this place to see Oppenheimer and then this place to see Barbie. I'm going across the street or whatever. That whole thing was like the extending an olive branch type of a thing to see if the filmmakers for those other 2 films would turn around and be like, yeah, you should go see Mission Impossible the week before, and trying to drum up business and
try to wrap Mission Impossible in with the Barbenheimer movement.
Yeah, and that
Barbenheimer Impossible
did no happen.
Barbenheimer Dead Reckoning.
So the stipulations were the money
for marketing, and that Universal could not release any other movies within 3 weeks before and 3 weeks after Oppenheimer. So it gives it a big window, and then also that they cannot put it on a streaming service for 90 to 120 days after its release.
which is hella short still.
Still, yeah, but those were his stipulations, and Universal was like, "Yep, all of them. You get all of them," and good for him. And also, on top of that, he wanted 20% of the first dollar gross, which is the money before it gets split up between theaters and studios, and so he got tens of millions of dollars off of just the opening weekend, which I assume with a filmmaker like Nolan, a lot of that will probably just go back into his next feature, into his next project. But you can tell that this movie is, like, in his opinion and in the opinion of most of the people that he worked with, is kind of the culmination of his career so far. Like, he uses elements all the way going back from Memento, up through this movie. So anyway,
it's great. Highly recommend it. I think it's going to destroy the Oscars, pun intended. And I think that is a step up for Nolan because it's not as cold as we described in a lot of ways. It's way warmer, and I think that's probably intentional with the subject matter.
It's a character study by comparison to most of his other films being more about...
Which doesn't give a shit about people.
Yeah.
So,
he said in
very
an
different
interview that
and very
Oppenheimer
great.
was the most dysfunctional character that he had ever written, and he was like, I'm not saying something because I did 3 Batman movies. But yeah, I mean, now we've talked enough about it. If you haven't been convinced at this point to go see it, definitely go see it, and check out Barbie while you're at it. Support that movie too. I haven't seen it yet, but that's kind
And
of
Mission
waiting.
Impossible, honestly.
Yeah,
Like,
and
all three of them
are
are great
fantastic.
movies.
Yeah, still
From
good.
what I've heard.
It's been a very good July. At the very tail end of our summer season, we're actually finally getting good movies. But you mentioned before this David Gordon Green disappointing us. Let's talk about the biggest horror news of the week.
Yeah,
The
so
Exorcist.
they released 3 posters for it earlier this week, and then shortly after they released a trailer. So there was one poster I thought was kind of creepy. The other ones didn't really do much for me. And then I did watch the trailer. Did you end up checking out the trailer?
Watched it today, yeah.
Yeah, and that one also didn't do much for me. It didn't seem like anything. They did this cool bit where they play just a little bit of the Exorcist like theme. I was like, that was cool. Boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
And then it finally plays and it's cool. But for the most part, it just seems like every other fucking possession movie that we've seen come out in the last 10, 20 years.
I've seen
That's-
screen grabs of it, and I'm like, I don't need to watch the trailer. I don't know if I need to watch the movie.
Well, I think the trailer seems to give a lot away. It shows a lot of the movie from what I can tell.
Some people like that.
Yeah, and a lot of people are just like, it's Blumhouse, I'm in. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. Like, I fucking love The Exorcist. I have my Exorcist shoes. I wear them all the time, and it's one of my favorite movies, and I think it's a masterpiece. And I think
one of your picks for your week
well, The
is
Exorcist 3, yeah, I also think is a masterpiece and fucking fantastic. And those are the only 2 good Exorcist movies, and the first season of the TV show is fantastic. But I thought the posters were cool. Like, I was like, ooh, this actually kind of gives a vibe that I'm into. But then watching the trailer, I had the exact same thought as you, which is I have just seen so many possession movies. Like, The Exorcist started that whole thing, and it has not stopped since then. I just watched The Pope's Exorcist and was so fucking bored by it because all of the possession stuff is exactly the same stuff we've seen. And I was really hoping going into this trailer that there would be some attempt to do something interesting, inventive, or new with the whole thing, but instead it's just like, well, no, we're going to rely on, let's bring back Ellen Burstyn and as Chris McNeil and be like, we got to get somebody who and they set it up exactly the same way that they have tried to set up all these characters, where it's like, we got to get the old person, the old lady who knows all about this to come in. And yeah, so it's just like,
It's the
every scene of these girls being
shit.
possessed in this trailer, I was just like, we have seen this shit.
One of them even looks like Deborah Logan.
Yeah.
At some point, I was like, I know you.
The last possession movie that I saw that I was like this is at least somewhat of an attempt at an original take was probably like Exorcism of Emily Rose, and that's because it doesn't really focus on the
Yeah, it's a court drama that happens
Yeah.
to have flashbacks to like some possession stuff that's done well and emotionally, so you care.
What was that one that was supposed to come out this year with like the nun? And it was like, you're a woman.
Oh, it was like it was
The Nun 2.
no, it's like I know exactly what you're talking about. 'Cause she's not like a
Oh, it's like, she's the first female exorcist or the first
Yeah.
female. Yeah, I think it might have been called like the Woman Exorcist or something. I don't know. But this first one is called The Exorcist Believer. It comes out this year, October 18th, I believe, 13th or something. I have it in my notes, but so,
it'll get carried to box office wins based on its name, and it'll probably be a subpar movie, similar to basically everything that's gone on in the last like 7 to 8 years.
well, the thing that
Aside from Scream,
the thing that I also don't really understand is, so I mean, I guess if the Halloween movies, all 3 of them, made a shit ton of money, I guess I can understand it from a business perspective. But I feel like most people felt burned by the Halloween trilogy and how it was very much like an unplanned thing, obviously, after you've watched all of them, and didn't really pan out in any way that people loved. And to have him so quickly jump into another confirmed trilogy of movies on another big property and approach it in the exact same way, which is instead of doing any sort of reboot or something interesting, we're just going to do another legacy sequel to the original Exorcist, pretend none of the sequels existed, which is what every Exorcist movie has done. And then,
Except Heretic.
well, yeah, that's a prequel. So for that,
No, it's not.
oh no, not Heretic, the second one. No, what I'm saying is the second one is like, okay, the first one existed. Then the third one's like, okay, then nothing but the first one existed. Then there's a prequel, and then the TV show is like, okay, none of them but the first one existed. And now this is coming out and saying, okay, none of them but the first one existed.
I mean, it's the same thing with Halloween. I mean, Halloween
And
did
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
and
they've
all
all
these
done the
franchises
same
where-
shit. It's like if
Except one.
part of
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Scream.
Oh, yeah.
Scream has all been
Scream?
inside of the same universe. All of the movies exist. I mean, I think that's the right way. You create a continuity that you can build off of, and I'm happy with that. I mean, or Child's Play. Child's Play is a perfect example of why that works so much better, and you can tell so many original stories if you just walk away
And you
from
can
that base concept
Just walk away.
and just try something different.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's a good example of when it works and when it doesn't.
Wait,
and
sorry, I was looking for my deleted Chop Talk note. What movie did you say?
Child's Play.
So Child's Play and Scream are like the best examples of what you can do if you find a way to make your continuity continue to work later down the line.
Yeah, and that was something that I saw because I was reading some of the reviews about previous Exorcist movies, and I think it was for the prequel. People were like, yeah, the really sad thing about this franchise is that every single one of these movies goes, okay, I'm going to follow the same beats as the original, and I'm going to follow that same kind of through line, but then none of them make any attempt to really connect all of the movies in any sort of like intelligible way. But again, there's a lot of horror franchises that are like that, and at least with The Exorcist, we haven't had... Well, really, I would say with The Exorcist, even though we haven't had 100 official sequels, between the last official Exorcist movie and this one, we've had plenty of movies that could basically be an Exorcist sequel because it's just another person being possessed in the exact same way.
Yeah, there was like a crossover with the found footage genre for a while too, where it was like possession found footage.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what kind of destroyed the possession genre because they were all the same, and now they're trying to do something different with it. But
Or make the possessions not like the central feature, like
I hope
the Conjuring movies. Like the possession's not really the important part. It's the
Possession's only 9/10 of the law.
I got you a little bit.
yeah.
A little bit. Speaking of trailers, I did want to mention briefly that there is a new teaser, and I would recommend watching this teaser because it doesn't give anything crazy away. It just kind of sets the tone for a remake of Witchboard. I don't know if you guys have seen the original. I haven't, but I know Joe Bob has an episode on it. It's a Ouija board movie. They couldn't call it Ouija because that's a trademarked name. But it's called Witchboard. It's about a Ouija board that makes some crazy shit happen to people. And wait, no, I did watch this. I watched it with Adrian, and it wasn't very good. But the thing that makes me want to bring this up to people is that it is going to be directed by Chuck Russell, who is the same person who directed the Blob remake, directed The Mask with Jim Carrey.
Okay.
What else has Chuck Russell done? But it's been like a while since he's come back to horror. So to me, that's a really, really exciting thing. But yeah, he did The Blob, The Mask, and A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Pedigree.
But he also did The Scorpion King. So a little bit of a mixed bag there. But
Some people love that movie. I've actually never seen just that movie.
yeah.
It ain't great.
I guess I'm talking shit for having no memory of
I think they're trying to reboot that too.
I played the video game on PS2 for a while.
Wow.
How was that? How'd you feel about that,
Also
John?
not great.
Then why'd you play it for a while?
Because it was when I was a kid, and you get a game, and that's the game you got for a little while, so you just gotta
Fair enough.
power through.
Play the shit out of some Cool Borders 4.
Yeah. I get that. I used to play, like, I'd have the demo discs, and I would just play the same, like, 15-minute demo of a game over and over again.
That's how I played. I played Medieval that way. I played Parasite Eve that way. Just demo discs. Just play as much of it as you can, and then
I miss the good old days of demo discs. And then it's in also teaser news that I would recommend checking out. Adult Swim debuted their eerie teaser for Junji Ito's Uzumaki. So there was a live action version of this movie made back in the 90s, I believe, or early 2000s, kind of along with The Ring, Ju-on.
Is it based on something? You said live action version. Is it a manga?
So yeah, Junji Ito is a horror manga artist. His art is super fucking creepy and really interesting. I highly recommend checking it out. And nobody has really been able to do justice to the creepiness and the eeriness of his work until what, in my opinion, looks like now. The plot of this story is a bunch of people in this town start seeing spirals in things and start becoming like so obsessed with spirals in the clouds and in the wind and in the water and in their food that it starts driving them insane. That's what Uzumaki means, is spiral. And
that's why Naruto Uzumaki.
The show appears to be basically like straight up just taking the black and white panels from the manga and doing like a slight animation to them, and so it appears to be extremely faithful to the source material. So if you are a Junji Ito fan, or you're just into really creepy hand-drawn shit, I would definitely recommend the trailer. It's basically just this dude telling this girl about like, yeah, my dad's become really obsessed with like all these spirals he's been collecting, and when he stares at them long enough, each of his eyes like independently starts to spin, and you see like the dad sitting there and his eyes just start going like
wasn't
spinning around in his skull.
The sequel of The Ring or the prequel of The Ring or something called Spiral?
Yeah, I think it's a very common motif in like Japanese horror, and also I don't know if that took inspiration from Junji Ito. But yeah, I would recommend checking out that teaser to see if you're interested. Plus, it's Adult Swim, so it'll probably be fucked up and cool. Saw. We were talking about Saw in our bonus episode a little bit. We talked about the movie Vacancy. Saw 10 not only has a pretty cool, interesting looking poster, which I'll have John throw up somewhere on the screen maybe.
Can I see it?
But it's...
Oh, what the...
There's some tube... James Wan posted it today, and having no involvement in the franchise beyond producing at this point, he was like, ooh, cool poster. I'm intrigued now.
Yeah.
So either this person on the poster is going to have some sort of bugs or something dumped into their eyeballs, or they're going to get their eyeballs vacuumed out. And either...
Maybe a bear?
Or a bear?
Yeah.
Shoved through the tubes? Yeah. And either way, creepy as fuck.
What's the tagline?
The games are back, bitch. It's Jigsaw, bitch. I don't know.
What does it say on the poster?
Oh, I didn't realize there was a tagline on the poster. It says, "Witness the return of Jigsaw."
Not to be confused with the movie Jigsaw.
Witness me! Yeah. But if you are a Saw fan and you were itching to check it out, originally this movie was supposed to come out October 27th. It's now been bumped up to September 29th, so right before the Halloween season starts.
This year?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So I don't know if that's to get a jump on some other stuff that's coming out during the Halloween season or what, but I don't think this movie is going to be very good, but I will go see it in the theater because I'm a guilty pleasure fan of the Saw franchise, and we just recently talked about all of them.
A couple of Saw suckers, you know?
A couple of Saw suckers.
You know what I forgot to mention during our bonus one? I feel like if you're really into the home invasion genre, because we didn't love Vacancy, that movie, the French one, Ills, was a really good one. So if you're looking for something home invasion and Vacancy didn't do it for you, I'd say check that out.
Agreed. And then I wanted to show you guys Walmart this October, well, actually starting mid-September, is going to be releasing several Steelbook Blu-ray collections of big horror franchises with new artwork for the box sets, and they're all pretty affordable. I'll pass this around, but for the people who aren't watching this, one of them is Rob Zombie's Halloween films 1 and 2. The other is Rob Zombie's Firefly trilogy. The third is Blair Witch and the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, really? They left out 2, huh?
Yeah, for good reason, maybe. And the fourth is the Leprechaun collection, so all the Leprechaun movies, which I'll probably pick up, and
including the remake or the reboot and the random sequel.
As far as I know, yeah.
Wow.
And then the Saw collection, which is just Saws 1 through 8, not the most recent ones. But if you want to check out the covers for these, and these will all be Steelbook box sets with new art for all the covers and everything. But I guess all the special features and stuff are pretty much the same as any other collection of these movies. But if you're just into cool box sets and artwork, that's pretty much the only reason I buy physical media.
I got them right here. Yeah, they look tight.
Is for box sets.
And cool covers.
Yeah.
Anything listed about like prices?
They range depending on how big the collection is, but I know like for the Leprechaun collection, it's less than $40 for all those movies. And I mean, like, yeah, they're all pretty bad, but $40 for a box of movies that I might put on during Halloween time or during St. Patrick's Day. The Blair Witch one I am interested in because even though I don't love the new Blair Witch, I like it enough, and the Blair Witch Project is one of my favorites, and I really like the artwork on there.
Yeah, we quote that movie every time we're in the corn maze.
And really, anytime somebody is looking for a Josh in a movie or in a came up during the barn.
So it looks like those are available for pre-order now.
Oh oh shit, get on that, guys,
Yeah.
before they're all gone.
And look at the
Before they've
pre-order
all
prices
vanished.
are lower than they'll be physically in the store. So like right now, Saw 1 through 8 is $39.96.
Well, also
Wow.
it would save you the horrendous nightmare experience of going into a Walmart. So maybe pre-order them and order them online. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is a couple more depressing things about the current writers/actors strike that's going on. So recently, the AMPTP, which is like the Association of Movie Producers and Studios, they made a statement saying that their plan is to not come back to the table for negotiations. Basically, their thought is we'll just wait it out until they get desperate enough to stop striking, and every statement they put out is like, you guys are fucking us over hardcore and you're going to ruin the theater industry. Like, this is the studio saying this to the actors, like, you're going to ruin the industry, you're being selfish, all this stuff.
Not if people are homeless or displaced or whatever.
Well, and that's the thing, is that the people who are at the top of these fields are not the people who are asking for money. It's the people who are
Well,
like...
Drescher was like, yeah, we're not doing this for the Tom Cruises. We're doing this for like the people who don't have, $500 in their bank account.
Yeah, it's for day actors and for and people who come in to punch up scripts and shit like that. Those are the people who need this. I mean, for most writers, like doesn't take a lot of writing to say that you're a writer. And like, if you're doing good work behind the scenes, and like the way that they do all this shit now is fucking ridiculous. It's like, basically there was like, I don't remember if we talked about this 2 weeks ago or what it was, but like they'll basically call people through and like say, well, here's the deal. We're not going to make a writer's room for you. We're going to call in these 5 people, and we're have them all do their own punch ups to these scripts. So we'll have 5 different scripts we can work from. And then we're going to, instead of bringing those people back and having them all discuss it, we're going to bring back a different 5 people, and they're going to talk about these scripts, and they're going to do rewrites and things like that until we come down to a consensus. We take the things we like from those, and one person will get the writing credit, and that's it.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like every other industry.
You pay those people day rates, and that sucks.
I would highly recommend, if you haven't checked them out and you're curious about some in-depth looks, because I don't want to go too much into this outside of, I do have a couple points of how this is going to start affecting movies coming out in the real world. But if you are really interested in knowing kind of the ins and outs of what's going on with both of these strikes, Dan Murrell's channel, he has 2 great videos, one about the writer's strike and one about the actor's strike, that really go into depth and helped me understand exactly what the writers and the actors are asking for and why it's important. And I know that there are some podcasts that are taking time off in solidarity, and don't hate us for not doing that, but we are not part of the business, so, and we need this to not go insane. So
yeah.
But how it's potentially going to affect us in the real world is that Warner Brothers is discussing the possibility that they may have to push Dune Part 2 and Aquaman 2 out of this year into next year. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but there have been some
Shut your fucking mouth.
yeah, that's why I said depressing when I started this.
Yeah.
I want to watch it so fucking badly.
I do too. Not Aquaman. Couldn't care less. But I can see the reasoning as that they need to pad the landing for how long this might potentially go by having these things stretched out further, meaning they're still having things that are relevantly being released.
Tent poles coming out later on when this continues to go for a year or however long it's going to go.
And they can just leave their movies in theaters for longer periods of time. So like right now, I mean, their next movie is going to be what, Blue Beetle?
Well,
which is already projecting to have an even bigger bomb and make less money than The Flash did.
Yeah, they're saying it's projected to lose like
it's
projected to lose like $100 million.
The Flash is now officially the biggest DC bomb of all time, all of their movies ever.
Well, it's because it costs so much, and they did so much. They had to do so much on the back end.
Yeah,
but also people can't promote it.
Yeah,
their movies, right? So let's not release Dune until we can get the actors on shit talking about it. Because right now they can't do anything.
Yeah, all the like Oppenheimer press that you see, they always have a little thing that pops up at the bottom now that says this was recorded before the strike started. John Boyega just came out with a Hot Ones episode where he ranks the new Star Wars sequels from his favorite to his least favorite. He puts Last Jedi at the bottom, but on that, a little thing popped up that was like, we recorded this episode before the strike happened. Like, everybody's trying to make sure, like, don't think that we're crossing lines. Like,
Well, I think he's allowed to do a show like that, right? Because he's
So
himself.
they're only allowed to do those when they're not promoting a
and he's
project.
promoting They Clone Tyrone, so.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So it's different than like John Stamos, who is also on Hot Ones, because he's promoting a book that he wrote. That's a different thing because he's not part of because he's part of SAG-AFTRA, but he's not part of the WGA.
Yeah. So,
Crazy stuff.
you know where we stand on all of that. Pay artists what they deserve.
100%.
They are the core and the backbone, and we can't just I'm not a part of this fucked up system. And it makes me never want to be a part of it. I'm like, I want to make movies so bad, but it's not going to be a part of this whole fucking thing. But yeah, it's sad, and I think anybody who's making arguments about like, well, they're just bitching or they're just complaining or they're rich or whatever, like, you don't understand what you're talking about. So go do some research and then come back and give your opinion.
Yeah, but that's part of the reason.
Whoever you are, who I'm attacking right now.
Mm-hmm. That's part of so SAG-AFTRA had to go back in partnership with the WGA and figure out which studios and which sets and everything were still able to run during the strikes. And basically the entirety of the list, aside from I think a Mel Gibson film because he was paying for it for himself, were basically all A24 productions. And that's because A24
Well, yeah, Steve sent me the
people.
thing about how like A24 is going to continue to be able to put out stuff because they've already been paying their artists and their collaborators what they're supposed to be making, and they've been like, you know, above board with all of that stuff. And also there's something about like them not being part of the same association and being an independent studio and all of that. Like, they are going to be able to continue to put out stuff.
And they got a new movie coming out soon that's supposed to be really good,
Talk
right?
to Me.
Talk to Me. I'm very excited about it. I know very little about it, and that apparently could be a possession movie that's doing something different from what I've heard, and so that gets me excited. Is like, cool, like if this is good, then yeah, fuck The Exorcist, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go see Talk to Me a couple times, but yeah, so I think that's about it for Chop Talk. Let's triv it up.
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah.
And give us that Dune. I need some Dune.
June.
How
Yeah.
you doing?
Play some trivia.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
We're going to turn those frowns upside down and play some trivia movies. Trivia game consists of 4 categories. We're going to read a category, then go around in a circle, reading to each other. With me to John, Anthony, back to me.
In typical fashion.
Oh shit, I'm possessed.
No.
Let's play a trivia in the name of Lucifer. Spread the blood of the innocent.
Oh my God, Chicago kicks ass.
All right, did you have a song or no?
No.
All right, fuck it. We're going to get started with comedy animation. John, what film stars Jack Nicholson as Melvin Udall, an obsessive-compulsive aging writer?
Can you give me the whole question one more time?
What film stars Jack Nicholson as Melvin Udall, an obsessive-compulsive aging writer?
Is it As Good as It Gets?
That is correct, and you're on the board.
How did you fucking get that, bro?
Because I'm old,
That's cake, bro.
like a pound.
I'm glad you said it. I wasn't gonna say it.
What?
That he's old.
I'm happy to say
Yeah,
that.
dude,
I'm
it's
old. I'm
embarrassing.
fucking asshole. Anthony, in The Birdcage, what are Robin Williams and Nathan Lane pretending to be?
Oh, that's a good ass movie though. Have you guys ever seen it?
I've
I've
never
seen
even heard of it. Robin Williams and who?
Nathan Lane?
Some classic '90s shit, huh?
The Birdcage. I'm gonna try to see if I can deduce this from the title.
No, ornithologists.
Yeah.
what the answer is.
They're pretending to be.
Okay, that's what I thought.
They're pretending to be. I don't know, doctors.
They're pretending to be a straight couple because I believe it isn't. Nathan Lane
They're-
in drag the whole time?
Well, their son is getting married, if I'm remembering correctly, and they're nervous about meeting her parents, and so they pretend to be a straight couple, like around the family.
Yeah.
Interesting. I might
But
have to
they,
check that out
yeah, I'm
then.
pretty sure they work at like a drag or like a burlesque like bar, like they own it. I think that's the Birdcage.
That's strange that there's a Robin Williams movie that I haven't even heard of. Like, I couldn't say that I've even heard that mentioned.
It's good though.
Yeah.
I will check it out if I remember. Tone, for your impossibly difficult question.
You lie?
Who plays Borat in Borat?
Oh fuck, dude! What is that guy's name?
My name.
My name is Borat.
He's got the girl's name.
Oh, I don't think he would agree with that.
He has a name that is often associated with girls. Sasha. Baron Cohen.
There you
Yep,
go.
nailed it.
One of them 3 namers.
Serial killer. Cool. Well, John and I are on the board, and we're moving into action adventure. John, what natural disaster film was the second highest grossing movie of 1996?
96, you say?
1996.
Oh, 96. Natural disaster film. Oh, God, I feel like I'm not gonna stick this landing here.
Yeah, I feel like around that time,
It's
there was
a
a
lo-
bunch of.
It
yeah.
was the peak. It was the Dante's peak of disaster films. Whoop.
Now, I'm pretty sure that the Armageddon Deep Impact year is 98. So I don't think it's either of those.
Okay. And Halloween is 10/31/78.
Yeah.
In a world where
said
John
it.
answers quickly.
96, you said?
Yes.
I'm going to say Twister.
Woo! It is a volcano. No, I'm just kidding. It's Twister.
Yeah, my gut's all twisted
Yeah.
with nervousness and anticipation.
And you're 2 for 2.
I almost jumped straight in and just said Armageddon. But
That's what I thought it was, because I thought I had the years mixed up in my head, and
But that was like the shit before Roland and Emmerich or whatever fucking came around. Like that was the time of disaster movies because Dante's Peak, and I think there was a movie that was Volcano, right? Like, and then Twister, and Armageddon. Like it was just left and right.
yeah.
Deep Contact.
yeah, I can't believe that we're getting a sequel, Twisters.
Are we?
Yeah, like next year.
Oh shit!
Weird. That's a bit odd. Anthony, in what movie does Steven Seagal play a cook on a battleship?
Get it right, or he's gonna fucking bust out of the door and snap your neck.
I doubt it. I could take him on.
You mean Aikido master?
Yeah, you mean hack fraud.
I agree.
Is
That's,
he?
that's honestly all I know about Seagal, is that he's just a fucking hack. But
He's not a martial artist.
I mean,
I'm
Aikido
sure he
is
is, but
Aikido
not-
is a martial art, but it is meant to essentially use the assailants' like force against them, and so like they do like these like flimsy little wrist grabs that like throw people across rooms, but it's mostly just because the people who they're fighting are just going with it. Whereas if you stop and plant yourself in most situations, Aikido does nothing for that.
I didn't know you were so well versed in.
I had some friends who took it in college because they wanted to have physical activity that was the least physical activity possible.
I took golf.
Yeah, I remember that. I have no idea, so I'm going to say The Extendables.
The extent.
The porn version. That's got to be the porn version of that movie, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not going to look it up to find out.
probably gay porn. It is Under Siege.
Oh, like Undersea?
J-
Clever.
Or like Under Siege.
Or that. Tone. For what 70s thriller did actor Dustin Hoffman take up running?
The Running Man.
unfortunately,
Oh no, is that not it?
the answer is Marathon Man.
Marathon Man.
Which I watched about a week ago because I always get those movies confused, and because we were covering The Running Man.
The Running Man's one with Arnie. We just covered it.
Oh my god!
Check out our Patreon episode about it.
Marathon Man is where the is it safe? Because they do, I don't know if you've ever heard that joke, but they do it on the Clerks TV show. But there's a scene where he's getting like dental torture. He's getting like drilled into his teeth, and everybody keeps asking him, like, is it safe?
Marathon Man. I was
Pretty
thinking
good
something
movie.
totally different. Anyway. Right on. Well, John takes an early lead. I'm sitting at 1, and Daddy over here's got a goose egg. And we're moving into drama and musical. John, who directed Raging Bull?
Oh, you motherfucker.
Jesus Christ. That would
Nope, that is
Listen, you
incorrect.
asshole. It is Martin Scorsese.
That is correct.
Who directed
yeah.
Jesus Christ?
Yeah, I mean, he did.
He was a superstar.
Anthony, this should get you on the board. In Citizen Kane, what is Rosebud?
Okay, spoilers.
His cane.
Spoilers, unless you've watched Family Guy, where I'm pretty sure this was just spoiled for me years ago. But Rosebud is his sled from when he was a child.
It is indeed a sled.
Citizen Kane is dope. You guys seen that movie?
I have seen that movie.
It's pretty awesome.
Never saw it. I've seen the opening. Where like zooms through all the windows.
Yeah, some bits of Oppenheimer kind of gave me Citizen Kane vibes. Not saying Oppenheimer is, best movie of all time, but just in the style and the presentation of the story with the jumping around to different time periods.
It's just so fucking good.
Tone, what is Brooks's job in The Shawshank Redemption?
Oh, I don't even know that. The Shank?
Andy Dufresne crawled through a river of human
What
waste.
is Brooks's job?
Mm-hmm. Came out clean on the other end.
He's a prison guard.
No, I would have thought you would have gotten this, being such a bookman. He's a prison librarian.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen The Shawshank Redemption?
What?
I don't do that very often, but you've never seen The Shawshank Redemption?
It's in most film classes they'll say it's the only film that should be considered as a perfect, flawless film.
I just don't like Shanks.
Or Shaw's.
Well, I'm not a fan of
And
Shaw's, and I
hate
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Redemption, dude.
I just can't believe that the number of times I've done my horrible Morgan Freeman impression
Really
directly
deterred me,
quoting
yeah.
that movie. Yeah, that's why you haven't watched it.
I got the real thing right here.
All right, John, you are 3 for 3. The Anthony and I are sitting at 1, and we're moving into horror and sci-fi. John, who stars as Carrie in the 1976 movie of the same name?
Is that Sissy? Sissy's Basic?
That is correct. Nice job, John Barasher, for the card sweep.
I will take a card sweep. Anthony, John Krasinski directed his wife Emily Blunt in what 2018 film about a family struggling in a post-apocalyptic world? I should have just stopped at Emily Blunt and 2018.
You should have just stopped at John Krasinski directed.
Yeah.
But how great was she?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody was fantastic. How great was Pew?
I was like, pew.
I was like, pew.
Yeah.
Felt like I hit puberty. Wait, what was the question? Oh, A Quiet Place.
Yeah. That is correct, sir.
My mind was in a couple different places.
Yeah.
Tone, for
Some
your
spirals.
for your Siffy question. What must the Lord of Darkness destroy to create eternal darkness in Legend?
Oh.
And you do have multiple choice if you'd like it.
Because I got nothing. I never even heard of that.
A, doves. B, unicorns. C, griffins. I don't know. I have no fucking clue what this
fuck did
movie
you just
is.
say to
Or
me?
yeah, so
Read the whole thing.
What must the Lord of Darkness destroy to create eternal darkness in Legend?
Unicorns.
It is indeed unicorns. There you go.
Thank you, Harry Potter. She's a fucking ripper-offer, huh? All right, great. So you got 4? Wow. And then Anthony and I got 2?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And we're moving back to comedy animation. John, in what comedy is a fashion model brainwashed to kill the prime rib of the Prime Minister of Malaysia? That's a joke from the movie. Okay. The Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Malaysia? I hardly know yet.
You said it's about a model?
Yes. A fashion model brainwashed to kill the Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Naked Gun style.
Oh, what could this be?
Are you serious? Okay. I'm shocked. And odd.
Take a look. It's in a book.
Reading Rainbow.
I can go anywhere.
Oh, fashion model. Somebody of Prime Minister of Malaysia. Is that what you said?
The McRib of Malaysia.
Yeah, I think the joke is the Prime Minister. What's it called? He calls him the Prime Rib of Indonesia or something.
I'm at a loss here. Oh, never mind. Is it Zoolander?
Yeah! Wow.
So here's the deal. You say the
because
words
you in your
model,
head-
and immediately I thought of a woman.
Exactly. I was sitting here going, I know exactly what's tripping him up right now.
Yeah.
I was really hoping that you would
I had
overcome that mental block.
Yeah, I had
you
a
got
very
modeling?
sexist moment. I apologize.
Zoolander would not appreciate that you went that way.
Yeah.
Men can be.
I don't appreciate that I went that way. I had the whole fucking the doctor like moral conundrum or whatever.
Men can be male models too.
That's probably exactly what he would have said. All right, Anthony. True or false? Steve Carell actually got his chest waxed on camera for the 40-year-old virgin. 100% he did.
That looked extremely painful. You could see like the blood coming into his pores. I need to rewatch that movie. There's a lot of those comedies that were just so endlessly quoted by my friends and like referenced that I haven't seen them in probably almost a decade. There's a list that I'm putting together, like Step Brothers,
Anchorman.
Walk Hard, Anchorman. Yeah, basically anything with Will Ferrell, Steve Carell, that whole gang.
The Goof Troop.
Yeah. Tone. Name one of the 3 main actors from the First Wives Club.
Come on, baby.
3 main actors.
So you just need
the
one.
First
Un?
Wives Club. You only need one. There are 3 listed here, which I appreciate because
Wait. Oh, it has to
not as multiple choice, but
I was
just
like, what? Yeah,
if you get any of these 3, then you will get the question right.
Susan Sarandon.
You know what? You were in the right kind of age range.
Is Keaton one of them? Diane Keaton.
Yep.
Damn, I was gonna say Diane Keaton.
Is Bette Midler one of them?
Yep.
I don't know who the third is, unfortunately.
Kurt Russell and
Goldie Hawn.
Goldie Hawn.
Trying to redeem yourself.
And you've totally redeemed yourself.
Dang it! I'm doing real bad.
It's
You
okay.
got
He's okay.
how many? You got 5, and he's got 3, and I got 2.
Yep.
And we're getting started with action adventure. John, which of the following actors does not star in Guns? What the fuck? Of Navarone? Is it Gregory Peck, David Niven, or Cary Grant?
What?
The Guns of Navarone.
Who's not in it?
Can you give me the 3 names again?
Yeah, Peck, Niven, Grant.
I feel like
Niven? I don't know.
I'm gonna say that the person who was not in it was Cary Grant.
That is correct.
Wow.
Shot in the dark. I was like, you're not gonna have Peck and Grant. You get one
How
of the
did
other.
you know Peck was in it?
I don't know. I just guessed.
Everything's just all coming up jig today, isn't it?
That's the one I thought you weren't gonna get.
Okay.
So I think you're gonna sweep her.
Yeah, I'm going to have to hire you to clean my apartment. Because you're sweeping.
Anthony, and one that should be right in the wheelhouse. In what Coen Brothers movie does Steve Buscemi end up in a wood chipper?
That would be the amazing Fargo.
Fargo, yeah.
Don't you know?
Don't you know?
Don't you know?
Tone, How many of the 5 Dirty Harry films starred Clint? This is very strange. Oh, no, okay. How many of the 5 Dirty Harry movies, I was reading this all backwards, starred Clint Eastwood?
How many of the 5?
Yeah, how many of the 5 Dirty Harry movies starred Clint Eastwood?
How do you know there were 5?
Yeah, I think it's Dirty Harry, and then the last one is called The Deadpool.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know. 3.
Magnum Force. He was in all 5.
Oh.
That's why I got confused, and I thought that almost gave it away, because I was like...
Trick
Tricky.
question.
Yeah, it says, how many of the 5 Dirty Harry movies starred Clint Eastwood? 5. And I was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, that seems kind of obvious. He is Dirty Harry.
Yeah, it tricked me. It got me. Dang
Trixie
it.
Hobbitses.
All right, John, you've got 6. Anthony, you've got 4. And I got 2. And I got no chance of winning this bad boy. And we're moving into drama musical. John, what almost completely silent film won the Best Picture Oscar in 2012?
That'd be The Artist.
That is correct.
That movie that nobody has rewatched since, and nobody even remembers existed.
There are a lot of Best Picture winners that are very similar quality. I would say Crash, probably in the same vein.
Green Book.
Unless you're talking about Cronenberg's Crash. Green Book, yeah, I haven't even seen it. I didn't know. I keep remembering it's a Farrelly movie, one of the Farrellys.
At least one of them, yeah.
Yeah. Anthony, name one of the 2 stars from Midnight Cowboy.
Name one of the 2?
One of the 2.
John Voight.
John Voight is one of the 2.
And the other one is Dustin Hoffman.
It is Dustin Hoffman.
Midnight Cowboy is a fucking awesome movie. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, I was learning about that the other day. I wonder why.
That's where I'm walking here comes from.
Yeah.
It's Dustin Hoffman. Tone, where on his person was Frank Serpico shot at the beginning of Serpico?
I always just think Charlie Day.
In the heart.
Unfortunately, and this makes me want to watch the movie because I haven't seen it, he was shot in the face.
Did it say face?
Yeah, just his face.
What if he shot you in the face?
I want to shoot his face
Off.
Well, fuck. All right, cool. John, you've got 5. Anthony,
What?
you got
7.
7. Yeah.
Navin.
I'm all discombobulated. How many's he got?
I think 5.
Cool. And then I got 2. Horror and sci-fi. John, what's the name of the hotel in The Shining?
The Overlook.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to get overlooked this week.
Sweep. A full sweep. Good job, buddy.
I'd almost think you had the Shining with that kind of psychic ability you seem to
Did you
have.
look
There's
at
a-
the answers to my glasses?
You're not wearing glasses. There's a Shining reference in Barbie. I won't spoil it.
Ooh.
Anthony, what Blade Runner movie was released in 2017?
Blade Runner 2049.
Indeed. Oh, it was 2048. You were this close.
I always do kind of like stumble on the year because I can never remember. Is it 2099, 2049? But yes, 2049. Tone, true or false? Jason Voorhees's trademark hockey mask did not appear until Friday the 13th, Part 3.
True.
That is indeed true.
Yep.
At least I went out on one I should have went out on. Mm-hmm. Or whatever the fuck I just tried to say.
Well, John,
Some stuff.
I'd say you surprised me, but there was some... Oh, I watched our Village Idiots of the Damned video. I was going through our YouTube, and I watched it. One had me cackling. That video is funny as fuck. If you haven't seen it, go onto our YouTube channel and
Friday.
check it out. But
After next,
yeah. And then it cuts, and it says, and that's why John sucks at trivia. And I was like, well, that's an outdated joke, because you've been killing it this season, and I am pretty blown away by some of the movies that you knew on those trivia cards. So awesome job.
Thank you.
Good job, bud. That's going to wrap it up for trivia. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to get into our main discussion, talking about Super 8 and Big Trouble in Little China.
Last rights.
Join the Creep Count. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Count. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelainpeak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey, you want to see something really scary?
Welcome back. We're getting started with our main discussion, and it was my week, the Tone Week, and I wanted to talk about these two movies that we had never talked about on the show, and that I hoped that we would before it ended, and so that's what we're doing. And my two picks were Big Trouble in Little China and Super 8. I feel like I can't say China without saying it like
China.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and start with John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China.
So I kept fucking with him because we watched it a couple nights ago.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, but Steer got it every time.
So tell me, what's the difference between Big China and Little China? Should I be concerned about Little China?
Little China's in America.
Okay.
I guess we don't know for sure, do we?
I mean, I'm pretty sure they say that it's Chinatown in San Francisco. I think.
Okay.
It's in a magical realm
Called San Francisco.
Yeah. So, real quick, this movie, directed by John Carpenter, written by Gary Goldman.
Not Oldman, but Goldman.
And
not Coleman.
David Weinstein. And stars Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall, Dennis Dunn, and James Hong. And what this movie is about?
No, I couldn't tell you.
It is about a guy who...
A truck driver.
Old Jack Burton.
Express.
Driving the Pork Chop Express, he stumbles into a situation where his friend's fiance gets kidnapped, and he tries to help him save her. That's like the basic... And really weird shit happens, but it's described as a action, comedy, fantasy, horror movie.
Martial arts.
Yeah.
It's
got every
a
genre.
little bit of everything. Yeah, and that you'll either absolutely love that, or you'll have no fucking clue what's going on and be really confused, which is kind of what my first experience with this movie was, because I had only seen it, and I know this is the same for you, not your experience, but having seen it recently. I think like a year ago was my first time seeing this movie, just because you had been like, dude, I saw it in theaters and it was amazing. I watched it by myself the first time, which I realized was a mistake. So the second time around, I watched it with my best friends, John Carpenter and Kurt Russell.
John and Kurt?
On the commentary track. But yeah, it's one of those movies where if it doesn't click the first time, definitely give it a rewatch, because once you know kind of what you're getting into, it's a fucking blast.
And if you are thinking John Carpenter, this is not what you're thinking. Like, this is probably his weirdest.
Yeah, especially if you're thinking like early John Carpenter.
Yeah.
It's very high camp by comparison to a lot of his other movies.
It's closer to a They Live than it is to a Halloween or
100%.
Fog or
Yeah,
something like that.
and where Halloween is a very subtle movie, this movie is not subtle in any fucking
It's about as subtle as having an anvil dropped on your head.
Pretty
Well,
much.
It sounds like we can all say, before we get into spoilers, because it's really impossible to talk about this movie without getting into spoilers, it sounds like we all unanimously recommend this if you haven't seen Big Trouble in Little China. John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China.
China.
Yeah, highly recommend checking it out. It's super fun, and
It's great to watch with people, too. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And what I would recommend, that's not really a spoiler, but might help you with your enjoyment of the movie, is don't go in thinking that Kurt Russell is like the hero of the movie, because that's the thing that I think, if you know that going into this movie, it makes the experience way more fun than if you go in thinking, because he's on all the posters and everything, he's got the classic like, I'm Kurt Russell, hero man, with Kim Cattrall.
Well, he is the lead, and he is supposed to be a hero, but he ends up just being a fucking idiot.
But the movie is a very intentional subversion of that. So yeah, spoilers going forward for the rest of the movie.
And think comedy going into it. Don't think Carpenter horror or Carpenter thriller or anything like that.
Yeah. So I was actually reminded, because this happens to me constantly now with our podcast, where my brain connects it to other movies we watched. I had a real Spirited Away moment, because as soon as Jack drives the truck into Chinatown, he like goes through an alleyway, and the way, and I was listening to the commentary, and Carpenter, one of his favorite things to do on his commentaries is point out how many different locations they'll use just to shoot one shot. So it'll like cut to something, and he'll go, and that was in Vancouver, and then it'll cut to another person in the same scene and be like, and we shot that, in a completely different country. And in this, it was like, so they were shooting in actual Chinatown, and then he goes down that little like side alley right before the big like martial arts fight happens in the street, and you get thunder and lightning and all that. That's when they transition into a set, and to me, the way the set is designed gives it a very, like, you immediately know you're somewhere you're not supposed to be and that some weird shit's going to go down here. And because it is, like, traveling through the alleyway, it gave me a very, like, now we've passed beyond the veil of reality into this, like, mystical, ancient Chinese magic world. And that also helped me go, like, okay, like, I shouldn't be taking anything past this point in the movie super seriously.
Not at all.
And also, Kurt Russell's character is the vehicle for the audience because he has no fucking clue what's going on from this very moment as soon as he gets here and all these guys come out and
He
start
was trying to get paid and maybe a little laid.
yeah, he doesn't know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. I guess the studio had a problem with that, and so they had to, like, dub in some dialogue in that scene when the gangs are coming to fight each other in the street because the studio was like, we don't know who the good guys and who the bad guys are, and Carpenter was like, that's the point.
Yep.
Is that you were supposed to go through this entire movie being just as confused as Jack Burton is about what the hell is going on and whether any of this is actually happening and why he's even involved in this situation, and he just does his best to be a good guy throughout it, and is just constantly being hit in the head and knocked out, or like,
Yeah, it's a really funny scene when it's like the big, like, climactic
it's the
battle.
final
He
battle.
shoots into the ceiling and then it fucking falls right on his head. Yeah.
or he's like
Or
trying to get his
throws
knife
it.
out and throws it.
And he's like, I'm ready to go.
He does have that really cool moment, like where you get the callback to the reflexes thing.
Yeah, the one moment he's not trying to, like, plan and think something through, and he's just going on pure instinct, is the most badass moment of the movie when
Fucking
he finally
catches a knife
and throws it back and nails him.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, Carpenter was a huge fan growing up of Chinese martial arts movies, and so this is his big homage to all of those movies that he grew up with, and then also, like, trying to do a whole subversion on the, you know, white savior hero thing. And a lot of people's complaints with this movie, and Carpenter said he got a lot of pushback from the Asian community saying, like, you're using a lot of, like, Fu Manchu stereotypes and stuff. And his intention with this movie, as far as I could tell from what he said and from my own experience with the movie, was he was trying to satirize those tropes. Like, everything in this is so over the top. Like, Lo Pan is such an over the top, ridiculous character that it's not like he is presenting these tropes and saying, this is how Chinese people are.
Right.
He's saying, this is how this weird parallel dimension magical kingdom functions, and it's not something you're supposed to take as, like, this is what John Carpenter thinks of Asian people. And on top of that, Jack Burton's not the hero of the movie. It's
Done?
Yeah, Done. What's his character name?
Let me look real fast. I have it right here.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head because I watched this a couple weeks ago. But yeah, he's the hero of the movie, and he's the one who's constantly fighting the battles and getting Jack Burton out of trouble.
Wang Chi.
Yeah, Wang Chi, and then on top of that, you get the whole thinking that at the end of the movie he's going to get with Kim Cattrall, who is great in the movie and also just fucking gorgeous. But you think that they're going to get together at the end, and you get that moment of Jack Burton being like, nah. He just leaves.
He's like, nah, that's probably not the best idea for you. People get tired of me. I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, and so I think if you understand those things, all those things that I just talked about, it's a great time. And I didn't take any of it seriously and thought that it was a total romp. And
You shouldn't take any of it seriously. Yeah, it's really a comedy. It's a blast. Kurt Russell's fucking hilarious in it. Even some of the slapstick stuff is pretty good, but just the shit he says where he's like, if we're not back, call the president. It's like, why?
Or just like his entire fucking rant over the radio in his truck at the very beginning and then continuing it at the very end.
I only drive as fast as I can see. Yeah, so I mean, he's fantastic in it, and I think what the movie does is it has fun. It's a misunderstanding, and then you get to explore this world, and maybe that's Carpenter trying to say, like, this is what people think of this culture, and it's ridiculous for you to think that, because obviously this isn't the case.
Yeah.
But we get a good performance from Russell, we get a good performance from Dunn, we get one from Cattrall, and then
Hong.
James
yeah,
Hong, yeah.
he's great.
He's almost
everything everywhere all at once fame.
He's almost a dual role in how different each version of Lo Pan is.
And at one point, he looks like John Carpenter does now. He's so old, like in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
I was like, is that John? But then who's the other guy that's like the leader of the good guys, the older dude?
Oh shoot.
He's really good too.
They call him Egg.
He was in Tremors.
Yeah. Is it
Yeah,
Victor or
Egg.
something? Victor.
Let me see.
'Cause I
Victor Wong.
Yeah, Victor Wong.
Egg Shen.
Yeah, Egg Shen.
Yeah, I thought he was great.
It
And
blew my mind when I was like, why do I recognize this guy? And it was because we had just watched Tremors,
Yeah.
and I was like, no,
he's also in
fucking
Three
way.
Ninjas. If you ever saw Three Ninjas as a kid.
I loved Three Ninjas when I was
Me
a
too.
kid.
John's never seen it.
Really?
Yeah, blew my mind.
Not as big a deal as Shawshank Redemption, but
Dude, you've never seen Three Ninjas? That was a staple for me as a kid. Anyway, I thought he was great too. So really, everyone puts in a pretty fun performance. Things that it's influenced. I mean, I think Raiden from the Mortal Kombat series is pulled
100%.
straight from this, which is pretty cool to think about that because I think all of us grew up with Mortal Kombat to some extent, and knowing that origin of that is so fucking weird to know that like this is where that came from.
something that I found out when I was looking through the trivia was that the Chinese characters in the main title, so it says like Big Trouble in Little China and then has Chinese characters. Those Chinese characters translate to evil spirits make a big scene in little spiritual state.
I mean, I don't think it's a perfect movie. I think that some of it works really well and some of it just doesn't work. There's like these weird monsters that pop up like 2/3 of the way
I always
through.
forget that they're part of the movie because
Yeah.
they don't really like. The only thing that they're really good for is like the little button at the end where he's like driving away in the truck and you see like the monster
Yeah.
come out at the back.
Yeah.
and
Which looked like something out of Creepshow.
Yeah, I kept thinking it was the crate. It looks like the crate
Yeah.
monster that Savini made for Creepshow.
Yeah, so there's that one that is just there to kidnap the fiance later, or not the fiance, but Kim Cattrall later on. And then there's like the weird fly one in the sewers that they immediately destroy. And then there's like the weird eyeball one. I mean, they look cool. Some of the effects were cool, but I was like, what's the point of that?
If I had to take a wild guess, I'd say that John Carpenter was probably suffering from a little bit of reefer madness while he was putting this movie together.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, and originally it was written as a Western, so it was supposed to be a period piece set in the Old West with all of these other elements going on. And Carpenter was like, "No, I want to take this like the same concept and story, but move it up to modern day," which I think was a good decision. It would have been interesting and cool as a Western, I think. Probably would have had more of like a Back to the Future 3 sort of style
Yeah.
where it's mixing the sci-fi fantasy with the Old West. But I think this makes it a little bit more unique than if it had been a Western. I don't know. Or maybe like a Wild Wild West type thing. I don't know if it would have gone over as well.
Wicka wicka wow. I should have done that for W.
Yeah, it's still not in my like top tier Carpenter movies. I enjoyed it a lot more this time around, but I think that it doesn't have as much substance as other Carpenter movies do. Like it's more just a fun time to have with friends, and it's goofy and it's a comedy, so like it doesn't need to have anything deeper going on. But yeah, like beyond it being kind of a satire of like standard Hollywood white action heroes, it's just cool to watch because it has great sets, great costumes, great makeup. The monsters, even though they don't make any sense, look cool.
It's got
a great cast.
yeah,
It really does. Yeah,
it does.
I had a blast with it. I mean, you've seen it a few times, or what's your experience with it?
Yeah, I've seen it a handful of times. I watched it a long time ago, and then I saw it a few times after that, mostly in like group settings. But it's just an enjoyable movie to sit down and just point at the screen and laugh and quote lines and that sort of shit. It's
part when he walks out with the lipstick on his fucking face, dude.
so good.
So fucking funny.
Yeah, I guess they just kind of improvised that because they had done the kiss scene in rehearsal, and Cattrall's makeup was like, her lipstick was so thick that it just came off on his face, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna have to figure out how to like get that off of his face." And then her and Russell were both like, no, that's funny. Let's keep it on. Yeah, and so they like.
It's an iconic part of the movie too.
Yeah, when I was looking up like screen grabs for this movie to put together the thumbnail for the video, that was one that kept popping up, was him with the lipstick on before the final battle.
Yeah, friend of the show, Nick, has a shirt from this movie, and it's of him with the lipstick in the middle of his mouth. Yeah,
That's awesome.
So did you enjoy it this time around?
100%. Yeah, it's just a good time. Like I said, it's very funny. The practical effects are done really well. I think when you're talking about the practical effects of this film, the most iconic scene is towards the very end when he expands and explodes.
Yeah, he's got all like the steam coming out. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah,
So good.
It's just a good time. Like I said, it's very high camp. You just
That's
sit
gonna
down
be
and
me when we do the Hot Ones shit.
Yeah. We'll have to make that the
expand and
thumbnail for
explode.
the video.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big trouble in Lily's butthole.
Yeah, Big Trouble and Little Blob.
That's the other thing that I love about this movie is all the buttholes. No, it's the title. I think Big Trouble in Little China. China is a fantastic title. So I've heard there's some big trouble.
Yeah, the movie did unfortunately fucking tank hard, and I think that, I mean, I don't know what the marketing was like, but I'm sure it was like John Carpenter, and it was probably like some down and dirty thing, and was it after or before Escape?
It was after in the studio.
So that makes sense, because it's on the heels of Halloween, on the heels of Escape, very different, very dark movies, and this is nothing like either of those, except for it has John Carpenter and it has Kurt Russell.
Yeah, the studio had promised that they would put a bunch of money behind marketing it. And then when it came time to actually market it, the studio was like, actually, we have a rule that we only give this very small amount to our marketing budget. And so the movie just like didn't get marketed. And then for the marketing that it did have, it was purposely crafted to mislead people into thinking that it was going to be like a standard Kurt Russell action movie. He's running around shooting Chinese people, I guess, and people were like, "Yeah, I want to see that," and we're disappointed when that wasn't what it was.
He ended up just being a fucking goofball.
Yeah,
I like Kurt Russell way more as a goofball than I do as like a Snake Plissken type, though. Like I rewatched Escape from New York after this. I went this is the movie that made me go on a big Carpenter binge over the next like week or so, and I rewatched a bunch of his stuff, and Escape still does not click with me on the level of most of Carpenter's other movies outside of, Vampires onward. But yeah, I just really enjoy Kurt Russell when he's playing somebody that has a little bit more of like a goofball, bumbling, and I think he enjoys those roles too more.
I mean,
From what I've heard
all
from him
except for Mac.
Yeah.
I mean, Mac is his swan song, in my opinion.
Yeah, but he's even got a little bit more like
He's a
charm
little
and personality.
I mean,
in that movie than he
well,
does.
fuck you too. Yeah,
He's more of like an everyman in that.
Yeah.
Not a total goofball, not a badass. He's just kind of like, I'm here in the snow.
Yeah.
Suck a dick.
Yeah.
So good thing.
But yeah, I got a lot more out of it this time around, so I'm glad that you picked it for us to watch.
Yeah, it was a blast. And friend of the pod, Kyle, has been asking us to watch this since the show started. And
So we got around to it.
But I was talking to him, he was like, "Yeah,
never, right?"
He's like, John hates it, and I was like, "No. John, you're thinking of The Fifth Element." But
No, yeah, I do not like The Fifth Element. We watched it on the show, and
I don't want to get into it because I have a hard time with it. Okay, it's gonna make me like you less.
I don't think that's fair. Because I said that every time I've seen it, I've enjoyed it a little bit more, but none of it is to the point where I enjoyed it.
All right, well, that's gonna wrap it up. Recommend Big Trouble in Little China. Watch it with friends, have a good time, and we hope that you like it and don't think it's going to be a horror movie, because it's not.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
Super 8.
Super 8.
J.J. Abrams.
One of my first steel books. That's pretty cool.
You stole that?
Yeah, I stole a book.
Stole book.
Anyway, Super 8.
This is a movie that I spent many years having never seen, but hearing you talk about it. Just pretty much as long as I've known you, I think.
Did you just watch it for the first time?
No, I've seen it a couple times. I think I've probably seen it like 4 times total, but like in the course of having known you, there were several years there in the beginning where I hadn't seen it, but you were just always like, I love Super 8. I love Super 8.
Yeah.
Super 8's so good. I love Super 8. And I remember being hyped about it from the trailers, but you picked it for this episode, so I would hope that you at least enjoy it.
And I didn't get it when we did S Roulette, so I had to
S-Roulette?
snake it in.
Like a Pliskin.
Yes, like a Pliskin. This one is directed by J.J. Abrams and very obviously produced by Steven Spielberg. I can't even tell you any of the kids' names. Elle Fanning's in it.
It's an Amblin production.
And it feels like an Amblin production. So while I'm looking up the cast real quick.
Kyle Chandler.
Kyle Chandler. It is about a group of kids that are filming a movie. And during the course of that, a train crashes.
What kind of movie? Super 8 movie?
No, it's not.
They're filming it on Super 8.
Yeah, they're filming it on Super 8. And
they stay in a Super 8 motel. That's why it's called that.
Train crashes. And what the fuck is going on
and
here?
Bruce Willis survives.
Yeah.
And then they find out that there was some weird shit going on in the train. They got footage of it, and now the government's trying to stop them.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Joel Courtney as Joe Lamb. Elle Fanning. Riley Griffith. and Ryan Lee. I don't feel like anybody cares except for Kyle Chandler.
Yeah.
And that's about it. There's a bunch of people in it. Apparently Michael Giacchino is in it.
Yeah, he plays like a cop or something at some point. I didn't realize it was him when I was watching it. Because I didn't think I knew what he looked like. But he also does the music, right? For the movie.
He does do the music, which I really liked. So that's
I've never heard a piece of Giacchino music that I didn't like. He is definitely
Fair
one
enough.
of my favorite modern composers.
Yeah, so I think that when this movie came out, people either didn't like it because it doesn't show enough of the monster. You don't really get a lot of monster. Classic Abrams, but also classic Spielberg. And I think that...
You barely see the alien in E.T., that's for sure.
you barely see the alien in Jaws. It's almost non-existent. It's fucking ridiculous. But I think another criticism for the movie could be, it's just trying to be Spielberg without actually getting there. And I think that it's an homage to Spielberg in a lot of ways, and it feels like a love letter from Abrams to him. And especially after watching a bunch more Spielberg since the last time I saw this movie, and The Fabelmans in particular, where it shows Spielberg's obsession with trains, and so like Abrams adding that into it. I don't know how much he knew, but I was just like, that's cool.
And Spielberg, running around with a Super 8 camera and filming his little movies, which I didn't know this, but apparently Abrams, when he was younger, like before his career launched, one of his first jobs was restoring the Super 8 movies that Spielberg shot when he was young, like in school.
Shit.
He wanted to have them
That's
restored,
really cool.
and so that's part of like how their relationship started, was he was restoring those old Super 8 movies that Spielberg had shot as a kid.
Yeah, I did not know that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And there's like this weird connection between him and Spielberg, and then like Michael Bay, because I think Spielberg produced
They're the disciples.
First produced the
acolytes of Spielberg. Yeah, we've kind
Transformers.
of been talking about this whole like
was Bay.
Yeah, Bay is also a Spielberg cast-off.
Well, and
I
that's,
didn't know that.
Yeah, and then Spielberg produced Transformers,
Right.
and then and I think they both. You mentioned this. Abrams and Bay have a lot of similarities in their style, and now that we know that they're both disciples of Spielberg, it kind of makes sense why there are some similarities there. But I feel like they both went in like their own different directions, and Bay really took some of those tropes of his to the extreme. And outside of like lens flares and Michael Giacchino music, Abrams has done more, I think I would say, of more of a variety of things. But for being a massive, obviously like childhood diehard fan of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, to have been able to do an Amblin movie that is a huge homage to Spielberg and to work with Spielberg, and then to go on and do 2 Star Wars movies, like that's got to be, the dude's living his dream, I'm sure. Like, that's insane. But
I think that all the performances are pretty good. I mean, some of the stuff that's going on with
I like that it's unknown kids.
Elle Fanning is like, oh shit, like her and Joel do a really good job, to the point where I was like, I could cry. I'm not gonna.
I got
but
emotional in a couple parts.
But yeah, all unknown pretty much. I think my biggest complaint is that the group of kids is too large, and you can cut one for sure out, because
You were
just
mentioning
disappears.
some that I didn't even remember after having seen it were in the movie.
And then there, at least 2 of the kids you can cut out completely.
Get rid of the kid who plays with fire. Don't need him.
With the teeth?
Yeah. Don't need him.
You don't need him. He could have easily been folded into another character that just did the same thing. And then there's the guy that's like on the payphone when the train wrecks. Like, he's useless. Like, he's barely in the movie.
Yeah.
So, but it does have that Stranger Things, kids on bikes feel.
I mean that's because it all came from E.T.
Yeah.
Yeah, E.T. and like a little bit of it.
Yeah.
With the gang of kids riding around on bikes. But
And this almost feels like could have been tagged a Cloverfield movie to some degree.
there was some misleading publication when this was coming out that it was going to be a Cloverfield project because of how it was marketed. Because I remember when the first previews for this were coming out, it was marketed very similarly to Cloverfield, in the whole like, something mysterious is happening and it could be scary and it probably is an alien, but you don't really know.
But then all that's true.
Well, in the poster, this shows all the characters and stuff, but the original poster that you saw was like the sideways landscape, and you had no fucking clue what the movie was supposed to be about just from the poster. And I remember thinking it was going to be something very different, which is why I think also people might have been disappointed that it turns out to be a bit more like feel-good family,
Kinda.
Spielbergian thing. Yeah.
It starts off very fucking sad.
Well, that was the idea that started
Has
this
some dark
entire
moments in
thing.
it,
Was
too.
the whole days
Drama-wise.
since an accident at the factory. That was just an individual idea that Abrams had like in film school, where he said, "I want to make a movie that opens with a scene like that," and then he wanted to make an alien, a movie, and then he also wanted to do a movie about kids shooting Super 8 movies as kids. And Spielberg, they got together in a story brainstorm meeting.
Yeah.
And Spielberg said, "Let's, you should combine all of those things." And
I think it works. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but for me, I think it tiptoes the line between good and great, and that's where I stand on it.
I think it's a solid film. I mean, I think that
the way you said that didn't sound convincing. John.
Of the films that I've seen of J.J. Abrams, this one goes a little too far with the lens flares. I think it's the biggest offender aside from maybe Star Trek.
It makes some sense in Star Trek.
In this, it doesn't make as much. There are some scenes where it works, but there are just scenes where it's two kids talking and it's fucking 4 different lens flares on the screen. I'm like, come on, dude.
Well, and
dial it back.
The thing that was pissing me off about that, he eases up on it after the first 45 minutes of the movie. It eases up a little bit until the very end, and then it starts coming up again. But when those kids are getting together at the train station before the accident and they're going to film the thing, I was getting so frustrated because the movie is gorgeously shot. I think this is a really well shot movie and just really well directed. And this was a cinematographer that he hadn't normally worked with before. I forget the cinematographer's name, but the constant movement of the camera and the big sweeps, and the camera will constantly be running up into a scene of people talking. Or if there's a group of people sitting around talking, it's always spinning around them and then coming back in the other direction to meet somebody else who has a line. And it's all heavily choreographed and gorgeous. But then you get these scenes where I'm going, I wish I could see what the fuck was on the screen, because there's 16 blue lens flares taking up the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they're all coming from streetlights. And I get it. He's trying to him, because what a lens flare is it's a reminder that you're watching a movie. So, because a lens flare is not something that exists in real life when you're looking at things. And
Except for me.
Well, yeah, unless you're wearing a pair of glasses that does that.
I have an astigmatism. Most lights do that in some way, shape, or form.
But the idea of a lens flare is that it reminds you oh, this is a piece of cinema, you're watching a movie. And I would assume that the reason he goes so overboard with it in this is because because the movie is about making movies. And so his thought was, let's keep reminding the audience that they're watching a movie.
Well, I wonder if that's how it would have looked if he had shot those scenes on a Super 8.
That was the original intention, but they realized that the effects artists could not work on Super 8 film. So for the stuff that is supposed to be Super 8 in this, they shot it on Super 16 and then grained it up to look more Super 8. But yeah, and I saw some people saying oh, the lens flares only show up in scenes where the kids are filming the movie, and I was like, that's not true. They show up in a lot of other scenes, and they're just in Star Trek. You could at least think, okay, well, there's lights and reflective surfaces all over the place, and there's light coming in from space, and so that could be. There's no real legitimate source for the lens flares, but we've talked about lens flares for too long. I do want to go into things because I do think that the movie is good. It is pretty good, and I'm not in love with it, but. I am glad that it was written by J.J. Abrams, because he tends to have Alex Kurtzman and Robert Orci write his stuff. They wrote all the Star Trek stuff, and they are just horrible. Not that those Star Trek movies are horrible, but their writing tends to be pretty awful. And I very quickly, while watching this, was like, oh, somebody who actually cared about what they were writing wrote this. And I was like, oh, makes sense. It was J.J. Abrams. He was writing this just from the heart. And I feel like you can tell that. There's a lot of heart that comes through in this movie. The characters feel very well realized.
Yes.
At least the main 3 kids.
Yeah.
And then his dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess both dads.
They're the only ones that I'm really referring to is just the director kid.
Who's
the main
fucking
kid.
hilarious.
Yeah. And kind of that love you find out is kind of a love triangle sort of thing. And the dad. Yeah. And the alien, of course. And the train.
Yeah.
Great actors.
I mean... So
the alien sucks, in my opinion. When you get the reveal, I think the alien is pretty boring. It's just another Cloverfield-esque CG.
Well, I heard somewhere once, or maybe I read it, that they're all using the same effects engine, and so that's what the effects engine has, and that's why
they
all
just
of the
start with a
monsters
stock alien
have become
model
so the same, like that and the Cloverfield and Quiet Place.
Because you heard that from me, because I watched a YouTube video on it. But
No, that's not it.
I do also feel like the derailment took me out of it a little bit because
of how CG it was. Or?
It just feels very nonsensical. Like the way that everything falls just doesn't seem right. So and like they all just happen to perfectly weave in and out and survive when they all should have been crushed and killed. I mean,
God, there's aliens in it.
I'm aware.
Yeah,
it
kind of thing doesn't bother me because it's a movie.
No, I get it.
It was just how like every one of them came like razor thin close to death. It's like either none of you are dying or all of you are dying.
I do like that they kind of poke fun at that though, because for a second they think that one of them might have been killed in the accident, and then they realize it's the costume blood from the like. I thought that was a pretty cute way of going. Like, we know this is ridiculous, and we're kind of making fun of it.
I think it shines as a study of those 5 characters, though, the 2 dads and then the 3 main kids.
Yeah.
I think the train derailment, I'm sure, especially if you saw it in theaters, was crazy.
I did.
I do think it's a little bit too big and bombastic for this type of movie. Like, if Spielberg had done that, I don't know if it... I mean, it probably would have been a model. And maybe it would have been as crazy as this. Yeah. But I do like the build up to the train scene, and when they realize, like, oh, fuck. Like, because the main kid... I don't know why I can't remember any of their names, but the main kid is like looking down at the tracks and he sees the truck coming up.
His name's Joe.
Joe sees the truck coming up and then he sees it get on the train tracks. All of that's super tense.
And he's like, "Why are you ruining the shot?" He's like, "Whoa, we're gonna die."
Well, and then the one kid is just like, when he sees the train coming, he's just like, "Production value." He wants him to start shooting it.
But the shot where you see the truck come in, similar to a lot.
Is that the guy that does he survive? Is he the guy with the blood all over him?
Yeah. He does survive.
I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's not possible.
So what were you saying?
But this is the quick zoom in. That one's
that like digital zoom, like
it's the same. Like Bay is notorious for it,
Cameron.
and Cameron's notorious for it, and they all stole it from Spielberg. Spielberg was the started those. Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of things that like I said, the movie's gorgeously shot. I do think that it's hard to capture that genuine family dynamic, like dysfunctional family dynamic in the way that Spielberg does. And I think this is probably the closest that somebody trying to be Spielberg has gotten to that. Because we talked about, I almost said Contact, in Deep Impact, we talked about them trying to tug at your heartstrings and make you care about these characters, and it just like falls completely flat. In this, I did care about the characters, even Elle Fanning's dad. Like, once you get to a point where you realize kind of what his whole backstory and how that ties into that scene you saw in the beginning of him showing up at Kyle Chandler's house.
We saw him in something else recently too. That guy, because he's from Mystery Alaska.
He reminds me of,
but we saw him in something else.
Dennis Leary. But that scene so you finally realize what's going on, and then he has that moment when Elle Fanning's character gets kidnapped by the alien, and he suddenly is like, "Oh fuck!" And then he's in the like refugee area or whatever, and the kid Joe comes up to him, and he's like rambling about like, "Nobody believes me." When Joe goes, "I believe you," just now gave me chills. Like, legitimately chills down my spine, because I just love that moment. It really captures that sense of childhood wonder, and like there is some bigger thing that's bigger than all of us going on in this town. I love the buildup of the mystery of the alien, where you have all of the dogs running off in different directions out of the town, and then you see all the missing posters up on the board, and then you don't realize until later like that they're all being they're all running away because there's this alien in the town, and then the whole thing of like, oh, all of our like microwaves and stuff are disappearing.
He was in Deep Impact.
Oh, that's right.
That's hilarious.
Oh, that's fucking funny, dude.
He also played one of the graboids in Tremors. I don't know if you guys realize that.
No, he was in Tremors 2. He played an ass blaster.
Does seem more fitting for that kind of actor. But I love the buildup of the mystery. I just think that when you finally get to the climax of the alien, it just is E.T. And he doesn't
Close Encounters.
Or Close Encounters, and doesn't even try to do anything different. And that's where I was a little bit disappointed with like, you didn't have to go that far with the homage. And Abrams even brought up, I think, in an interview that I read, that he was nervous about the way he ended the movie because he is pretty much straight up copying E.T. with that ending.
I would say
and
the
I just
difference
watched
being-
E.T., so I don't know, or maybe I watched E.T. right after, but either way, I was like, it's almost a clone of the exact same scene with like the ship going up in the sky and everybody
Yeah.
looking up at it. And
I would say the difference being is that the alien is violent, where at Close Encounters we don't get violence, and then in AT he's like the nicest fucking little melted Hershey's Kiss you ever seen.
it almost made me think, because I know that...
And I like the violence. I like the horror aspect of this, where there's those little bits, like when the sheriff is walking out of the convenience store, like that shit's scary, and we don't know for a long time what's really going on.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, I don't know if I love the whole, like... I like that it's built up as a mystery, but I think just because I knew it was J.J. Abrams and know that that's his whole thing is the mystery box thing. Like, it just kind of irritates me now when I see it, even if this was made back before that became something that I was irritated about. But I just watched a movie last night that had a similar kind of J.J. Abrams-esque mystery box plot, and it drove me fucking crazy.
What was the movie?
It was called Ultrasound. I'll tell you guys more about it after.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
But,
What did you think of the alien and all that business? I mean, you're the most like
it also
Spielbergian guy.
connects to the person who has contact with it, almost like E.T. the Extraterrestrial, or
almost like it,
or almost like,
or exactly like it,
or exactly like an E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
I feel like this is before everything became really homogenous. I think that so it doesn't lose as much as maybe something like the Monsters from A Quiet Place lose, because A Quiet Place came out so much later, or the Demogorgon. Like,
Yeah, now there's no excuse. Back then, it was still probably felt original. And again, like maybe that's why this is hard to discuss. Is I'm also looking at it with a lot of J.J. Abrams hindsight, where I'm not as big on him as I was back when this came out, and probably would have dug it a lot more. And
well, something like this walks, so something like Stranger Things can run. I mean, being
Up that
as
hill.
being as much of like a Kids on Bikes Spielberg style ripoff as you can be. Like, this does a lot of the same things that Stranger Things gets a ton of credit for. So I mean, there is that. I'm not in love with the design of the alien, but it was an earlier time. CG wasn't quite as good then as it is now. But
you
even
brought up that that's where the Jaws influence comes in too, because the CG wasn't quite up to snuff, or they had spent it all on the train derailment sequence. Maybe that's part of why it doesn't get shown a lot throughout the movie, is to save on that budget. I would also think maybe not to completely crack open the scope of this movie out of the small story of these kids and their relationship with their parents.
Well, you get spoon-fed alien, and you don't care as much about like the little white things, or
there were parts of this movie where I was kind of forgetting that an alien was a part of the story, because I was way more interested in, I know all of it, like I would kind of forget that the actual creature existed, and I was more interested in like the weird phenomena of like when the little like piece of the ship or the train
gets stuck to the water tower.
Yeah, and it flies through that like space shuttle picture that he has on the wall.
Yeah.
And they start like all the the metals flying around and all that stuff. I was like, ooh, what's this? And I almost wished it wasn't an alien. Like, it was something different, like more unique. And I think part of what makes this movie a little bit hard to criticize is just that it was in collaboration with Spielberg. So it's hard, like there were parts where I was like, okay, is this him just ripping off Spielberg? But how can he be ripping off Spielberg if Spielberg
is there signing off on it,
saying like, yes, this is the kind.
That's what I'm saying. It's a love letter.
It's and that's what makes it like, if I have a problem, like I don't know.
Because it's like,
just a hard
that's such
movie
a Spielberg move. But yeah, it's such a Spielberg move.
That brings me to the question of like, I get that you want to do a love letter to the director, but one, Spielberg is at this point, especially too, still alive, still making great movies for the most part. So it's not like you're doing an homage to like Hitchcock, who's been long dead or something. So you're kind of revitalizing that style and bringing something new to it. If Spielberg wanted to make Super 8, he could have just made Super 8 and done it as a Spielberg movie. And so there's that where I'm like, was it really necessary? Is like my biggest question, is like, couldn't you have made something that was a love letter to Spielberg without just being straight up carbon copy with a few tweaks? But I guess if you are told by Steven Spielberg, I am giving you the keys to my kingdom to make a Spielberg movie, who wouldn't jump at the chance to do that? And if you start straying in the wrong direction, you have the man himself there to be like, nope, turn it back around here and go this way.
I mean, at least he didn't just remake the Goonies or whatever, or like E.T. What he did with Star Wars.
That's
like,
the other side
of Star Wars.
That's the other side of the coin, is that I at least appreciate that he didn't just remake one of Spielberg's movies and instead was like, I'm going to kind of reimagine a bunch of Spielberg movies.
I'm going to show
it
my
own
influence.
thing.
Yeah.
And also bring in some of, I'm sure, his own personal, background with making movies as a kid and stuff like into this. So it is still very personal to Abrams. And I would say that this is probably one of his most personal movies, just because it is all about making films. And also I think my absolute favorite part of the movie is just whenever the kids are making the movie.
Yeah.
I love seeing the kids, like, when they ask, like, oh, how'd you get into, like, how'd you learn all this about makeup? And he's like, oh, it's from the Book of Monster Makeup. By that's an actual book, by an actual makeup artist, and them doing like a Night of the Living Dead-esque zombie movie. Like, I was a sucker for that.
And I love that we got to see the movie.
Yeah.
And that's very Hitchcockian too, right? Where he's like introducing it. It's like, I hope you liked my film.
Yeah, and you have the classic parents that are like, fuck your art. It's not important and I hate it.
You're going to go to baseball camp.
Now, I think that it achieves what it sets out to do.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I can't give it all of this credit for being a love letter to Spielberg. I have to give it credit based on it being a movie that I would go back and watch again. And I think that I would. I think that it's, like I said, I think that there are parts of it that I wasn't a fan of, but at the core of it, like I said, those 5 characters specifically do a ton for me, and there's a ton of visual flair aside from the actual literal flares. Like you said, the actual cinematography is just gorgeous. They picked really great places to film. The sets are really well designed and built, and it's just a good time.
The score, the Super 8 theme is so fucking good.
A huge benefit to this movie is the score.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because it really, really brings through that feeling of, the darker, creepier mystery moments, and then the more like wonderful childhood wonder moments, and then the really emotional beats. Like, the score is what really, I think, made those chills go down my spine at a lot of points. And then also the kids are just fantastic, and I'm a fan of the Fannings.
Yeah.
And especially
she delivers.
Yeah, especially Elle. This was the first thing I think I had ever seen her in, and since then, Neon Demon is like one of my. I know a lot of people don't like that movie, but I think that she's great in that movie. And I looked to see if any of the other kids had really gone on to have huge careers. The kid with the teeth was also in, I think, the Goosebumps movie, and then the kid who played the director friend has since gone on. He was like he played football for his school, and he's gone on to have like a separate non-acting related career. And I think a lot of the kids besides Fanning went on to have non-acting related careers. I think even the main kid hasn't really done much since Super 8, but that was intentional. Abrams wanted new fresh faces, and I think did an awesome job outside of like those side characters that just didn't, and that's not their fault. That's the script's not fleshing them out.
And the kid from Seventh Heaven.
Yeah,
which I thought was like, I fucking know that stupid face.
Yeah, and I love that.
He was pretty funny.
He was kind of the edgy bad boy in Seventh Heaven, like as much as you could be in a show like that. But in this, they're like, now he gets to be just like a total burnout. And yeah, it's.
You want to buy some pot?
Yeah, and you got to have that character like to come in and be like the bad influence on the little kids, and he's the one that like can cruise them around when they need to get into adventures.
All right, cool. Anything else you want to say about it?
No, I mean,
recommend?
Yes, other than saying that I would recommend watching it.
Yeah, good picks on both fronts.
Thank
Can't
you.
say I disliked either.
All right, cool. So next week is going to be John's turn.
The old jigsaw week.
So why don't you hit us with what you got?
All right, so we are going to finally be watching The Barn Part 2, which, spoiler alert, our names and the name of the show is in the credits because we contributed to make sure that film happened.
That did not add to our enjoyment of the movie.
No.
But if you have not seen The Barn Part 1, check that out before our discussion.
It's as B as you're going to get.
Yeah.
It's camp to the fullest. It's very low budget,
And it's a Halloween classic.
Yeah, and it's a blast.
I'd say right under John Carpenter's Halloween is The Barn. No, honestly, I would say The Barn and The Barn Part 2.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a little spoiler on my thoughts.
But yeah,
I love these movies.
The Barn Part 2. And then, as if to go in the exact opposite direction, we're going to be watching The Wailing.
Yeah, South Korean film.
On Peacock right now, if you're interested, right?
I believe so,
it's
yeah.
about 2.5 hours long, but you will not be bored for a second. I just rewatched it. It was my second time watching it, and holy shit, it's a great fucking movie. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you guys think about it. Nobody's doing horror and thrillers like South Korea these days.
No.
I tell you what.
I hope everything except for Peninsula.
Yeah.
Wah, wah, wah. You swing and a miss, and that's what we're doing next week. So stay tuned. If you haven't, check out our bonus. We just talked about Vacancy. We're talking about Weird Science. So we're fucking all over the place this season, huh?
And also, if you are not a part of the Creep Cult, you are just having a windfall of beautiful conversations because we're basically releasing all of the alphabet
the
roulette.
floodgates are open. The little boy's taking his little fingy out the dam. And because we had to skip
Getting his Whittle
Willy's all wet with bonus episodes. Because we had to skip a week, I was just like, fuck it now. And also because I had fallen behind and realized we have a lot of bonus episodes that I would hate for you guys not to be able to hear if you're not on the Patreon Creep Cult. This week already, we have had our Eraserhead episode on Monday, Face Off on Tuesday, Gremlins 2, the new batch, what comes after G? Hell House LLC Part 2, The Abaddon Hotel.
Fuck.
Infinity Pool will come out on Friday.
Fuck.
And Jennifer's Body on Saturday.
I already forgot we covered all this shit.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, so there are a fuck ton of discussions running the gamut of horror, sci-fi, a little bit of fantasy. And so if you want more of us for some stupid reason, then go to
You're
YouTube.
smart people and you want more.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself.
Cool. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Stay tuned next week where we get into John's picks, and we'll see you next time. I've been Tone.
I've been John.
And I've been Internet Daddy, Internet Darling, Pork Chop Express.
There we go. There we go.
Anthony.
Thanks again. We will see you next time.
Say, if you don't see us next week, call the president. Keep it creepy.
There was no collusion with Little China. There was no contact between. I did not take important documents out of Little China.
Oh.